Chapter 101. How dare he speak like that? The reaction was intense. Jin-gum-ryung clenched his teeth. While he was still reeling from the shocking defeat, Yunjong took the initiative to demand the next battle. Such a cheeky request made Jin-gum-ryung's blood boil. On the other hand, Yunjong recoiled when he saw the fiery reaction on the Jeonnam side. Did I overdo it? Although it was an event where they had to fight, it was natural that they'd react poorly after such apparent provocation. However, this was something Yunjong had to do. He had to continue carrying the momentum started by Cheongmyeong. Jin-gum-ryung shouted with an angry voice, "Gongjin! Gongjin! Yes, Sasuk! Go! Smash that cocky bastard and hurry back! Yes!" Jin-gum-ryung's face was distorted. He was a perfectionist. He desired a complete and total victory over Mount Hua, but now that perfect flow had been broken. It was a crack that would be impossible to fill. Cheongmyeong. His eyes turned to Cheongmyeong in the distance. This idiot. Jin-gum-ryung didn't expect Son Woo-ryang to suffer such a devastating defeat. Was their disciple weaker than expected? Or was Cheongmyeong that much stronger than anticipated? The latter. It was impossible for Jin-gum-ryung to misinterpret Son Woo-ryang's capabilities. He was undoubtedly the most powerful among the third-class disciples. For him to be defeated by Cheongmyeong meant that he was much stronger than Jeonnam Sect's third-class disciples. It's possible, but the other disciples aren't that strong. It was an unexpected blow, but he wasn't disgraced yet. If the remaining disciples could claim victory and retake the momentum, the conference would end with Cheongmyeong being the only remarkable thing about Mount Hua. Gongjin, one of the strongest of the third-class disciples, took to the stage and drew his wooden sword. With that, Yunjong took a deep breath. Is he my opponent again? This was actually sooner than Yunjong expected. Yunjong battled Gongjin in the last conference as well. Back then, he was pushed back and crushed without even being able to counterattack. Now, 2 years later, honestly, I have no chance of winning. If it hadn't been for Cheongmyeong's arrival. Before Cheongmyeong joined the sect, Yunjong never properly trained. To be precise, he trained out of obligation. He never trained with the desire to improve himself and grow powerful, because it all felt meaningless. A lethargic air permeated Mount Hua and corrupted the disciples. The impact of their previous defeat at the Jeonnam Sect's hands was just that great. Baekchun was the only one who challenged that wall of despair. But then, one day, Cheongmyeong appeared as if he was a star that dropped from the sky. Thanks to him, Yunjong was able to spend the past few months doing his best. Could the gap have narrowed with just a couple months of training? Yunjong couldn't be sure, but I won't lose so easily. He is the great Sahyong of the third-class disciples. Even if Cheongmyeong was truly the one in charge of the third-class disciples, Yunjong still had his pride as the great Sahyong. He refused to give an unseemly performance here. Gongjin fiercely glared at Yunjong. No need for words. I'll make you painfully aware of how deeply I care about victory. I have no intention of saying anything either. Words are useless. Gongjin yelled and rushed at Yunjong, who stood there grasping his sword. His sword is swift and straight. A sword that can be seen clearly. A traditional sword that follows a predictable path. Yet, Yunjong couldn't stop it. That was the difference between Yunjong and Gongjin. A vast difference where clumsy tricks could not affect the technique's flow. But this time, Kang! Gongjin's outstretched sword was blocked by Yunjong's blade. Huh? Quickly responding to the unexpected collision, Gongjin retrieved his sword and stabbed it again. It looks like you haven't just been playing around, but you still don't have a chance. Yunjong continued to defend against Gongjin's consecutive assaults. It was fast and heavy. Gongjin's sword was faster and more intense than in the past. Yunjong could fully realize just how much he had struggled to improve. It was at least twice as strong as the last time they fought. But why? Kang, kang, kang. Yunjong's sword moved concisely to block the opponent. 2 years ago, he couldn't even see this sword properly. That same frightening sword was even faster now. So why could he see it now? It was a complete mystery. Why can't I see it so clearly? It wasn't slow. The strikes were fast. Fast enough to loudly cry out as they sliced through the air. Yet Yunjong's eyes could perfectly discern the sword's path. It was nothing like the past where he couldn't react at all. Kang! Yunjong's sword traveled in a simple fashion to efficiently deflect Gongjin's strikes. Meanwhile, Gongjin was unable to overcome the recoil and struggled to correct his posture as he was pushed back. Yunjong looked at him with a puzzled face. Is this all you have? No, don't get angry. I'm not trying to provoke you or anything. I'm sincerely asking. You aren't trying to disgrace me by only using half your strength or anything, right? I need to be sure. You bastard! I'll kill you! Gongjin was boiling red with fury. Yunjong's innocent questions seemed like mockery to his ears. Seeing his reaction, Yunjong became more flustered at the situation rather than afraid. Chongmyung, what the hell did that bastard do to us? Every movement of his rushing opponent could be seen and felt. Yunjong could tell by the simple movements of Gongjin's shoulders which direction the strikes would come from. It was not predicting the sword's path. He could see it with his eyes and understand. Swish. Although the wooden sword was swung violently, Yunjong perfectly avoided it by taking a simple step back. The blade struck the empty air and fell in front of Yunjong. Gongjin's posture tilted as he put too much power into the sword. A small gap that the old Yunjong would have never been able to see had opened up in front of him, and he could see it as clear as day. Pwak! Yunjong's feet moved before his mind could fully process his own actions, kicking Gongjin in the side. When he saw that Gongjin had been thrown back by his kick, Yunjong unwittingly looked back. Chongmyung was looking at him with downcast eyes, as if he was bored and simply wanted this to end quickly. That crazy bastard! It was no wonder that Chongmyung was behaving strangely. It was as if he had already foreseen the results of this conference. Ah! Gongjin had lost all reason at that time as his mind drowned in anger. He ran towards Yunjong once again. Seeing his foe's charge, Yunjong spread his legs slightly and raised his sword. From the top, the basic posture of swordsmanship and the basic stance for the equilibrium of six sword. It was the same stance that Yunjong endlessly drilled into his body for 10 days straight. Gongjin's sword stretched out, and his movements began to change compared to the swordsmanship he displayed so far. If it was the old Yunjong, he would have felt flustered and been embarrassed by this sudden difference. But now, Yunjong's eyes could clearly see and understand everything. All the changes in swordsmanship eventually come through the fingertips. He fixed his lower body like a mountain and didn't miss a single movement. Swoosh! He saw it. The moment when the sword and body connected, Yunjong didn't miss that slight gap, and his body began to move automatically once he confirmed it. Whack! The sword cut through the air. A blade that slashed with no hesitation. An unshaken heart, a disciplined body, and a clear purpose. This sword connected these three cornerstones and pierced through Gongjin's sword path before striking him on the shoulder. Frightened, Gongjin suddenly turned his sword to block the attack. Kwang! And the sword soared into the sky. Gongjin's sword spun violently as it flew through the sky and landed in the distance. Thud. The subtle sound of the sword hitting the ground rang quietly through the training hall, which was stunned into silence. Everyone was quiet. Some jumped up and stared incredulously. Gongjin, the Jongnam sect's third-class disciple, had collapsed to the ground unconscious. In front of him, Yunjong firmly stood tall like a massive mountain. A perfect victory without any declaration needed. Yunjong, who looked at Gongjin, retrieved his sword and put it near his waist. I learned a lot, and turned around to return to his sect. Shortly after, a thunderous roar erupted.
Whoa! We won! We won! Yunjong Sayang won!
Insane! This makes no sense! Not just the children, even the elders and the undisciples were in an uproar. Yunjong! Yunjong!
Act properly, Sayang.
Hyunyoung deftly grabbed Hyunsang, who was about to rush over to Yunjong. Damn it! I'm going to lose it! We won! We won!
Sayang, be dignified. Control yourself.
Do I look like I can do that now? Even Hyunyoung couldn't hide his smile as he held on to Hyunsang.
So good.
Hyunsang was always harsh on himself. Just like how the finance division was stressed because of Mount Hua's condition, Hyunsang was troubled at the decline of their martial arts. As head of martial arts, he needed to lead the development of the sect's martial prowess. Yet, he was resentful because there was nothing he could do to raise the level the disciples were stuck at. He never showed it, but it was clear how frustrating it was. But the third-class disciples, who they expected nothing from, were trampling all over the Jongnam bastards.
Sect leader.
Hyunyoung looked at Hyunjong. He was smiling happily, kind and comfy. Just looking at him made one's heart warm.
Don't follow the light. Come back, sect leader.
Hyunyoung threw away Hyunsang, ran to Hyunjong, and shook him by the shoulders.
Get yourself together. Sect leader. Not now. Don't let your soul escape.
Everything has been accomplished.
No, we still have a long way to go. Call the practitioner. Medical practitioner.
While that was happening, Yunjong returned to his group and shyly smiled at the Sahyongs. But he also felt like flying. But while everyone was dancing joyously, Jogul couldn't smile. It was his turn next. Sahyong, great Sahyong, how did you do that? What did you... Go. Yes, Sahyong. Just go. Huh? Yunjong smiled. Now he understood why Chongmyong didn't say anything and just told him to leave. You won't lose even if you want to. Just go. You will see soon enough. Jogul tilted his head, but Yunjong didn't speak anymore. With a stiff expression, Jogul headed to the center. Without even looking at Jogul, Yunjong went to Chongmyong and sat next to him, then firmly asked, "What did you do to us?" Chongmyong lightly smiled while looking at Yunjong.
What?
To us.
That.
Chongmyong smiled and spoke. Nothing much. I just made you win. That is what I'm asking. How did you do that? That goblin-like bastard